So, have you heard of Professor Jiang, this person?
Yeah, I have seen his channel few times here and there.
Yeah. He have also shared his channel with me once, I think
Mm,
a while ago. Yeah. So, I think he became popular at around June of this year because he made a correct prediction about US attacking Iran a year earlier in one of his lessons.
mm.
So, since then, he has become quite popular. I think at around
So,
June he
like, is he
had
based in China or like where is he based in?
I think he's based in China. So I think that the lessons, the classes that he's taking, those are in China. But he has also been to Canada. So he has also he explained his history. So I think I don't know, he was born in China, then he went to Canada and then again back, so on. But I think
Mm,
most of these classes are happening in China, I think so. Which
mm,
also gives me a different perspective because the media always tells about like China is so much restrictive, there's so much censorship and so on. But the kind of things that he speaks about in this kind of lessons and the complexity of those topics, it's not even a college student; those are school students. So because even as an adult, there are certain topics it becomes difficult to comprehend. So then, and he's talking to them, talking about it to school students. There's definitely something else going on in China that we don't know about. Like it's not portrayed like that.
mm.
So anyway, uh, actually my aim here was to discuss only the first 8 minutes, and that too as a reference about what I am. I had my own hypothesis or some explanations, and the first eight minutes means adds more evidence or to the argument. That's what I wanted to do. So I will do that. And also, this will act as a like a basis for a lot of the uh, videos that I plan to react and watch together in the coming weeks and months. That will, in those videos, I'll make commentaries that will be based on the theory or the hypothesis that I talk about in this video. So so this acts as a foundation for those things. So I'll briefly in within 5 minutes I'll try to say what my idea is. Actually, I was planning to write an article then share it, but I was not able to complete it. So I'll briefly talk about it within 5 minutes, the core idea, and then we'll look at this video.
Okay.
Okay. So I think so. Earlier this year I talked about this concept of the few and the many. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's a more updated version of that one. So in the world as it's visible right now, that in terms of wealth and power, there is an unequal distribution. Some people have a lot of both, and most people do not have a lot of this. So that's it. That's a fact. It cannot be argued. Like how it originated, that's a origin story that needs to be looked at, and that is exactly what this video will give one of the possible theories about how it originated. But the fact is that there is this inequality of wealth and power in society, and it has existed since the beginning of human civilization. That's the most cleanest observation, cannot be debated about it. Okay, so now there are a few things. So among the people, there are two intentions. There is a tendency for people who have the power to set up to create means so that they can hold on to their power and wealth. And then there's the other intention that is to be able to distribute and like reduce this inequality. If not make it equal, at least reduce the inequality to an acceptable level. And I've talked about, and I've used the word intention, not the groups, because there is a difference, which I think that it is there. So this intention, okay, let me first talk about the intention to make it more equitable, not keep all the wealth and power concentrated to only a few. So who are these people who want to create this difference? The first category is obvious. The people who do not have it, they definitely want more equal distributions. That's obvious, because most of the social and political activists that you can see around the world right now or in the past are the people who actually suffered from this inequality, and that's why they want it. Like in India, the people who were fighting for independence were the Indians, because we in the regular Indians were the ones who were suffering from this inequality. In US, the racial discrimination between black and white. So most of the activists were black people because they were suffering from it. So the group which suffers is definitely the majority of the people who want the change, the more equitable distribution of wealth and power will be the one from the group that has the less one. But then again, there are also people from the few who are, who could be said, who are more educated or have a more open mind and heart, and they also want to contribute and say that, okay, maybe it shouldn't be there. Because by the few, it doesn't only mean the billionaires. So I've heard somewhere that in India, if you earn 40 or 50 lakhs per annum, you are in the top 1%. So 40 to 50 lakhs per annum makes you the top 1% of Indians. But
Mhm.
so you can see that it's a very exponential graph. But then again, there is a billionaire who has a net worth of like thousands of crores. Like one billion is about like 8,000 crores or something. So 40 billion is also a 40 lakh per annum person is also in the 1%. And the 8,000 crore person is also in the 1%. So like when I talk the few about the few, that 40 lakh person also goes into that category. So obviously most of the people like the professors and those people can definitely be like by professor I would mean like professors of universities like Oxford, MIT, those kind of people. They could very well be in the 1% of income or wealth. And even throughout history, you can look at a lot of other people. Like, I think people like Bertrand Russell, he came from a very wealthy family, but he wrote books on philosophy and so on. So, and on average, you can look at a lot of people who fight for like equitable justice, who are from a wealthy background. So that's for the if that's so that's the first interest, creating reducing the gap and making the world more equitable. And there's the second group, which wants to keep more and more power to themselves among the few. So again, there are two groups. The majority will be from the few, because since they are from the few, they definitely want more and more power to be within themselves and keep within their families and within their small tight-knit group. So that's obvious. Okay, so my current is gone, but I think I'll still continue. So the second group is uh, the people who are from the uh, who are members of the many. That means the people who do not have a lot of wealth and power. So these people, instead of fighting for equality or equitable distribution, their whole aim is to climb up the ladder. Okay, so as I was saying, from the second interest, the tendency to keep power among themselves. So the first group, as I've said, was obvious that the people who already have the power, they definitely would, power and wealth, will definitely want to keep the power and wealth among themselves. That's obvious. But the second group that wants this is the people who are from the many, the people who do not have. But what they want to do is that they want to climb up this ladder and they themselves want to have this wealth and power. They do not have the tendency to distribute it among themselves, among the people, and make it more equitable. They want to have more among themselves. They want to put it. They want to move from these many to the few. They want this mobility among themselves. So that's the thing. Now, I'm not making any value judgment. Like, I don't want to say, okay, these people are evil because they want to go from many to a few. They do not think about the other thing. They do not think about the other people. So those are the kind of specific things that we will, the morality of those things will be discussed in future videos and discussion sessions. But right now, I'm only explaining the phenomena that's happening. Whether it's right or wrong, good or bad, that's not the point of discussion here. I'm only trying to give the factual description of what's happening in the world. And what I have mentioned, do you think, is it a correct? Have you observed this thing in your life or not?
I mean, yes, it is true. I mean, from what you can observe, what you have said so far seems correct only.
Yeah, because yeah, because there are people like people from poorer families. They definitely, there are people who work hard, become politicians, become businessmen, they become rich. Good for them, but they do not do much for the society. And again, I'm not saying that they are evil or bad or anything. Those will be discussed in coming weeks and months. Right now, only the facts here. So that's the broader big picture theory of society and human civilization, how this works. And lot of things can be explained by only this simple thing, a simple rule, which again, not today, but in the coming weeks and months, I'll share lots of videos and make commentary, then it'll make sense. But now I'll go into this video will explain the origin that how did this inequality come in the first place? Because it seems like everyone should be equal to begin with. So how did some have more and a lot of people had few? So he starts with two alternate theories. One is the more mainstream so acceptable theory, and then the second is the one he talks about. That what does he think? So let's start.
Today we discuss the idea of civilization. And first I want to present to you the general understanding of how we get civilization. Then I will present to you an alternative. Okay? So the traditional understanding is the Marxist understanding. This is the idea proposed by Karl Marx, and it's the dominant idea. So in the beginning, we were hunter-gatherers. And it sucked to be a hunter-gatherer because you could not find food. And then we discovered agriculture, farming. And that allowed for surplus food. Surplus just means that you have more food than you can eat. And so now you have people who don't have to work, okay, an elite. And as such, they can engage in activities that improve the well-being of everyone and which create the basis for civilization. These things include religion, okay, which are just myths and stories, but also arts, dance, music, songs, paintings. And then, of course, you have science and technology. And with these three things in place, now you can grow as a society. Okay? You can now build cities. Why? Because now you can have irrigation and farming. Okay? You can now direct the river flow so you can use more farmland. Okay? You can now have a hereditary elite. And so that these people can focus their entire time on innovation, on science, on progress. Okay? And then you have writing. Because only a heritage elite has the time and the resources to learn how to write. Because remember, back then, writing is a very difficult activity. You have to spend your entire life learning it and practicing it. And then you have the idea of money and property. Okay? And together, these four things are what we refer to as civilization. Okay? Now, there are good things that come from civilization, religion, arts, and science, but there are also bad things as well, which include war, slavery, and debt. Okay? And that is a story of civilization that you are taught in school and that most mainstream academics understand. Today, I want to propose an alternative, and I think...
Okay, before he goes about the alternative, so did you get what he was trying to say here?
Yeah, I think I understood. So this is basically the framework or the steps that lead to the rise of civilization or the start of civilization. Or yeah, I understood
Yes.
theoretically what he's trying to say.
Yeah. And again, from my perspective, the point that I'm trying to make uh, about how elites are formed. So that is how, from this point of, from this story, this is how he thinks elites are formed. It's like at some point of time when we were hunter-gatherers, everybody had to work. Nobody had free time to do anything. But as soon as people started agriculture, like there were a group of people. Maybe like if a person has like earlier people had lots of children. So if you are a hunter-gatherer, like no one has to be free. Everyone has to contribute something. But once you settle down, like you do, not everyone has to contribute in the same way in a physical manner. Some people get to have some off time. And during this off time, like once you have off time, you start getting more creative. Like most people would have experienced, like when you are busy with life and those things, you don't have time for any other things. Like, but when you're free, you can do things like those kind of things. So again, like some people became more free, had more time for creative pursuits, which led to the creation of arts, religion, science, and so on. But there are other people who did not have this luxury. So hence this division started. And over time it became, he called this about hereditary elitism, elite. Because okay, the people who, suppose the first generation people who created those things, maybe their children also didn't have to work. So again, they became the part of the elite. And so on, over time, over generations, that difference came to be. Because the other generation, they were working, their children were workers, and they have to keep working. So this gap was created. But as he said, this is not actually how it happened. Let's see what he is going to say.
this is a much more compelling alternative than this one. Mainstream academics understand. Today, I want to propose an alternative, and I think this is a much more compelling alternative than this one. And the idea is this. From the very beginning, we were religious, artistic, and capable of science. Okay? We do not need an elite to do this for us. We are all capable of doing this by ourselves. And the examples, of course, are the cave paintings that we discussed, as well as these religious settlements, Göbekli Tepe, Karahoyak. Okay? And as we discussed before, people come together to practice their religion, building temples, building monuments. And then slowly, around these temples, you have development of farming in order to sustain these temples, in order to practice the religion. But over time, what happens is that the temple people become corrupt, Rather than being elected by the people, rather than serve the people, they become hereditary, okay? They engage in rent seeking. And so what people do is they just leave and build a temple somewhere else. Okay? And throughout this time, all these temples are being built. But in certain locations, the temples can also engage in trade. Why? Because they're the meeting place of many, many other communities. And as such, their real estate is the most valuable in the world. And so it's hard for people to leave, and the place just grows and grows and grows. And as this civilization grows, the people in charge create something called a temple economy. Okay? And this is just a primitive form of taxation. Basically what happens is that everyone brings food to the temple, and the priests then redistribute the food amongst everyone else. Okay? And that allows for public works projects, like irrigation, mainly irrigation, but also more temples. Okay? And because of this economy, now you need writing. You need to record how much food you have. You have to record who gets what food, the rations. You also need to record trade, right? How much grain you're getting from here, how much cows you're giving to over there, okay? Now you have a writing system, then you have money. But as this civilization develops, a strict hierarchy emerges. And the hierarchy goes against the natural order. Also remember that people at any time can just choose to leave. So how do you make people stay where they are and just follow the natural order? Well, now you have to create mythology. Okay? Which then you encode or write down so that it seems as though it's coming from the gods themselves. Okay, does that make sense? In other words, civilization did not give us religion, arts, and science. We already had these things. We could at any time in our history do all these things. Civilization is a device meant to gaslight or fool people into believing that a hierarchy is legitimate when it is not legitimate. It is meant to fool people into thinking that this hierarchical system is divinely ordained. Okay? So that's the argument I will make to you today. Before I continue, are you clear about this framework?
So, what do you think about this second one?
Yeah, I mean, so maybe we can do like a compare and contrast for this two. So like if for in like talking about the origin of civilization,
Yes,
in the first one he mentions the agriculture was the one that led to everything else.
yes,
So civilization only emerged after agriculture came and there was a food surplus, so people had free time and so on. So that is how it led to the building of civilization.
yeah,
Second alternative point is that there were people were capable of like the creativity, arts, religion, everything else. So they
yes,
would practice that, and that formed a community because they would choose to practice together. They formed temples or common buildings where people gathered. Which
yeah,
so that is how the origin of civilization is talking about. So he is saying that agriculture came second
yes.
in his alternative theory.
Mm. In the alternate theory, the
Uh,
reason was greed and corrupt, mostly greed, not agriculture. Can you
mm,
tell, do you understand why it's greed? Because,
you, that is okay, but the origin itself,
yeah,
either of this could be true or both of this could be true, I think. Like I don't see why it has to be one or the other.
So yes, for I definitely think that agriculture definitely played a part because agriculture allowed people to settle down because
Yeah,
a hunter-gatherer society community is nomadic. They keep moving from places to places. So if you keep moving places to places, you cannot compound your build like your things. Like a city is in one place, you can build, you can make a house, then update it, and so on and so forth. But if you're
yeah.
nomadic,
So
you
like,
just yeah,
mm,
continue.
like the man, the in the alternative theory, he starts with saying that people are already capable of religion, arts, creation, etc., without having an elite.
Yes,
But in order to practice all these things, they do need to have the free time to think beyond just their immediate survival, which required, which had to have required agriculture. They cannot have been thinking of food all the time and have the time to practice religion and arts and creation also.
but
So there has to
I
be some kind of stability before that, before they pursue this religion and building temples.
but I think even without an agricultural society, it might be possible because especially if you're living in smaller communities, you can you can you can kill a big animal like a relatively big animal that gives you meat for quite a while. And most importantly, the cave paint there are examples of cave paintings from more than 50,000, 60,000 years ago. And I am not sure, but the whole concept of creation of civilization is only the first civilization came into being only in last 8 or 6,000 years ago. But there were cave paintings from 60 to 50, 60,000 years ago. So how were these people 50 to 60,000 years ago had the creativity to go into paintings? So I think if you are a small community, you kill an animal, and how much time do you even? It's not like an office like in today's day, like 7 o'clock, you have to go put a fingerprint, and you can't take a. If you take lunch hours, uh, extended lunch hour, your boss will come and tell you, "Oh, why are you taking extended lunch hours?" If you go around, if you just go out and find an animal early in the morning, your day is done. Like you can
Mm,
still the rest you don't have to like clock in hours like a factory shift. You can if you just get an animal in early in the morning, it's done. And the best example I can find is of animals. Just look at animals around us. They don't just keep hunting all the time. If they find a food early in the morning, most of the time the cats are just sleeping and roaming around. They don't like 24 into 7 looking for food. Now, of course, they have the instinct that okay, as soon as they find a food, they have the instinct to eat the food, but they don't actively look around. Plus, since they have a smaller brain, they
mm,
don't have the capacity for creative pursuits, which humans have. So I think even without these things, even without agriculture, some form of creative and religious things could be done. It is not entirely impossible.
I think yeah, that makes sense maybe.
Yeah.
So yes, it is possible. Then I think next he discusses the rise of elites, and so in the first framework, the elites are who are the elites? Because they are surplus of food, so some
Mm.
people get the free time not to worry about food. So, but yeah, I mean, as a theory, it makes sense. But I'm just thinking in, like, say, in a community, who
Yes.
decides to become the elite? Who became the first elites? Who and why? Why did they have the free time and others had to keep working?
Yes.
Maybe,
That's why the first one doesn't make sense.
yeah. In the second also, it doesn't make sense. Like, who decides to become the temple?
I
Because I don't, at the earlier stages, there would have not have been the concept of owning land or so.
Yes,
So they
there would
just
not.
common ground. They just build a place to worship.
Yes.
Who became the owner of that place? How?
I think that is how I think like my theory or my explanation would be that there would be some people who are more clever and tricker, like more like cunning. I think that is visible. I think I have observed in my life throughout my life, in school, in college, in work. Like some people are more cunning, like they can get away with doing less work, having more connections with people who are more influential, and uh, they can just use expensive, like good words. Like they sound that they're complicated, sophisticated, but they aren't much to show
Mm-hmm.
that they can do more work. And these are the people who get promoted, are in positions of power, not through their raw ability to do things, but their ability to play the game. And since humans today can do it, I think in humans in instinctively or like intrinsically have this ability. And I think so even in the early civilization, some people were this kind of cunning people who took advantage of this. So they were not bothered about honest, hardworking life, about hunting and killing. If they found some opportunity, then they will definitely do this. For example, I think in a lot of people, in a lot of areas, like there's this, in a lot of apartments, there are these societies. Why are there societies in like there's a society head? Okay, we'll have a monthly meeting for an apartment. Why do you need these things? Just live your life. Just you live in your room, go to work. Why do you need to be a boss or like create a political system within an apartment? Because that's an instinctive thing in humans. They want to do this kind of thing. They want to consume power within themselves, like be head of whatever, even if it's as small as an apartment, like a building, like with 10 flats. They want to have this, creates a like being political is like a genetic thing, like within humans, to have power and to get some power. I think that played a factor in these kind of things.
Probably. Yes.
So I think that's my hypothesis. Like I look at how people behave currently and how similarly how they could have behaved earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And and the important takeaway from this second theory is that, which can also explain a lot of what's happening in the present in terms of trying to have more power, is that this hierarchy itself originated out of greed and this need to have control over other people. Because the first one is that there is no greed in anything. It's just some people tend to have surplus, because of surplus. Some people did not uh, have to work, so that they spend their time in intellectual pursuits, and hence they become elite. So it seems like elite people, uh, they become elite out of noble pursuits, like doing something intellectual. That's why they become elite. But the second one says that the whole root of elitism is rooted in greed and need for self-preservation. Like selfishness is the root of these things. So I want to look at this thing once more, the how temples were created. I forgot.
From the very beginning, we were religious, artistic, and capable of science. Okay? We do not need an elite to do this for us. We are all capable of doing this by ourselves. And the examples, of course, are the cave paintings that we discussed, as well
Like when he mentions the cave paintings.
as these religious settlements, Göbekli Tepe, Karahoyak. Okay? And as we discussed before, people come together to practice their religion, building temples, building monuments. And then slowly, around these temples, you have development of farming in order to sustain these temples, in order to practice the religion. But over time, what happens is that the temple people become corrupt. Rather than being elected by the people, rather than serve the people, they become hereditary, okay? They engage in rent-seeking. And so what people do is they just leave. and build a temple somewhere else. Okay? And throughout this time, all these temples are being built. But in certain locations, the temples can also engage in trade.
Okay, so he mentions that once the temple is made, there are certain people who are in charge of like keeping the temple clean or those kind of things. Like in charge of the temple, like security guard or something like that. But then
Mm.
since the whole concept of temple is a religion and God, something supernatural, like these people got cunning. Like, okay, maybe we can influence the people. Like, what, give us extra, since we are protecting this special place, just give us extra offerings, extra food or something like that. And once the point of greed is like once you get the taste of this thing, of more, you want more and more and more. That's the whole point of it. Like initially people think, okay, let me just do it once. But once you get the taste of it, it consumes you. And
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the whole reason of elite. Yeah. So again, the whole point, I won't go further into this video because a lot of other things are covered that is not relevant to what I'm trying to say. So the takeaway is this how power came to be. And in the future, I'll look at a lot of examples from business to politics. I'll look at other videos and that will try to see how this kind of people are, like how the modern iteration of this kind of things are happening in today's world. Uh, okay, so that's what I'm going to do next. So do you have
Okay.
anything else?
So given that it was just an 8-minute introduction, it is obviously quite simplistic
Yes,
view.
yeah,
So probably many other points that were not discussed here. So like few points that I think like ecology is one factor. So people starting this kind of civilization at different places, certain places because of the ecology, they had to do it a certain way.
mm,
Maybe that could be one factor that will decide how a civilization came to be. Then there is also like yeah, see when you say civilization, it was not one whole thing. It was a there has to be some kind of like as the civilization started growing, there were trades with different other civilizations.
yes,
Then there will be conflict among two civilizations. So
yes,
there have like he mentioned in the first one, there were wars.
mm,
So which civilization won? Why did the war take place? Who wanted to win over the other? So
yeah,
it was not like all the elites were in the same page also. So at the beginning, surely it was an elite in a community where the
exactly.
elite from other community would want to take over the other side's elite. So it's not like when we say few and the many, even in the few, there's no clear, what's the word? Uh,
Unity among themselves.
yeah, unity or there's a word with
Yeah.
C, it starts with C. When you
Community, collection, collusion.
when you work together with one another.
Yeah, collusion or something like that.
Yeah, let's say collision.
Uh,
I was thinking of some other
yeah,
word. I'm not able to think. But anyway, there was
okay.
no such collision like that. So they were not
Yeah,
properly mixing together. So that is one aspect also we have to think. I think it is not as simple as this. There has to be many lot of other dynamics taking place. But so like, what would you say is the outcome we can take from this discussion, at least from this 8 minutes of discussion?
well, my main outcome is that the whole point of elitism is rooted in the need for more power, and it comes from this inner need for more power, and that's how once people get it, they want more of it. That's the main idea that I want to take instead of the mainstream theory that elitism comes from noble pursuits. It doesn't come from noble pursuits. It comes from the need for more power. Mostly, that is the thing. And the second thing is that it doesn't about the power that you said that among the few there isn't a unity.
Collaboration is the word I was thinking.
Yes, collaboration. Yes,
Mm.
the collaboration. Okay,
Yeah.
so I agree. Like it is definitely not there. Like even today, like by few, I do not mean that there is one few or throughout the whole globe. They are different. Like the Indian views, maybe they are in conflict with the American views. The American views are in conflict with the, the Soviet, no, not Soviet, the Russian views. Of course, there is there. Like the few is one broad category, but it doesn't mean that they're all in one team. They are not in one team. They have their own divisions. That's the whole point of wars between two countries and area there, or two companies.
Yeah.
So they are definitely not in uh, friendship and collaboration with each other. But the some strategic collaboration is there. Okay, if like maybe if it has both of us strategically, they will come and work together for a while as long as it's beneficial. And as soon as they do not see the benefit, they will again start fighting against each other. So that's the thing. Their collaboration is strategic, temporary, but there is at the extreme level, it's just every man for himself, like each person for themselves. Like theoretically, that's what I think it is all about. Like one person with the ultimate power, they will only collaborate with the other person as long as it benefits them. And as soon as their benefit is over, they'll probably kill that person. Like if you watch the Hunger Games, it is very much like that. Have you watched that as the movie?
No.
Okay, well, okay. The thing is that like you have to survive this jungle and so on. So what this thing is that there's only one winner, only one can survive those things. But even within that, people create teams and like that. Okay, there are 10 people, at least will five five. Okay, let us let we five be one group and eliminate those five. Then we can compete among themselves. Then among these five, again three will be one group, two will be one group. So like that, they create teams temporarily but
Mm.
eventually one will come out in top. So it's temporary collaboration among the few.
Okay. So then similar to this movie, but I think somewhat opposite. There's a recent movie that came out. It's called The Long Walk. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not,
It's
I
I
think.
think it's based on a novel from Stephen King or Stephen Knight, or I don't know what his name is.
Oh yes,
So
I think so. I have heard. They have to keep walking. If someone stops, they die. Yeah,
yeah, that one.
yeah, okay.
So the plot is that only, and the whole movie is just them walking. But
Okay.
you'll see that, like you said here, that people are forming groups, so eliminate others and so on.
Yeah.
Here, somewhat kind of the opposite is happening. Like people are rooting for the other, like everyone else, to survive till the end. And even at the end, when just two people are remaining, both try to sacrifice each other for so that the other person can win.
Mm.
So either like I mean, both of this does exist in humanity, but it seems that once you have tasted power, or maybe some people are more inclined to be one way or the other. I think that is there. I think in the movie itself, one of the character mentions that winning is not like he talks that if it was just about physical fitness, I'm definitely going to win this thing. So the one of the character is quite strong, so it is easy for him to keep walking for days.
Mm.
But he then says that there is something in the brain. I don't have the need to compete with others. And then he says, if I get tired at one point, I will just sit down and lose. So it definitely comes down to that. Some people have the inclination to just compete and win whatever the means be. Some other people want to collaborate more, and if things start getting harder, they will just give up. So those kind of things also, like basically human nature is at play here.
So I think to cover this in more details, I think there is another topic, fundamental topic that we can discuss. I think I have talked about this, about Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and the uh, about the psyche. Like there are different multiple cells within our own self. So
Mhm.
if we look at those, if we cover those things, I think a lot of these things will again be more understandable why certain people behave in certain ways and other people behave in other, like why people, some people are more greedy and other people are more altruistic, trying to wants to help others. So
Hmm.
that is another fundamental topic that we need to discuss, which will help us understand more about the practical world even better when we discuss those videos.
Yeah.
So maybe next time will react or look at those videos. I have two videos. We'll look at those and maybe it will understand. So
Yeah.
yeah. So anything else?
No.
Okay, so can end the recording. Is the recording here?